Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. This is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, where I have the amazing opportunity to interview several guests that are going to bring us some motivation, inspiration, and education. And today, our special guest is Matthew Brenner. He is a prominent figure in the martial arts community, serving as a multi-school franchisee of Action Karate in Philadelphia. He's also the owner of Double Your Dojo, a platform dedicated to helping martial arts school owners grow their businesses organically and develop their staff effectively, freeing them from the burden of doing everything on their own. In his personal life, Matthew is a true adventurer and explorer with a passion for hiking and scuba diving. He's also a dedicated reader, a skilled jiu-jitsu practitioner, and the host of the popular Black Belt Business podcast. Fun fact, Matthew hails from a large family of 9 siblings, which undoubtedly adds to his unique perspective on life and business. Matthew, thanks for being on the Master Motivation Podcast today.
Thanks for having me. And I love the intro video with you doing that crazy drop kick on that guy in the middle. I was like, damn, that was impressive.
That was a good time. That was, almost 12 years ago, that particular match. But, as I mentioned earlier, I did some pro wrestling in my career, and I have a match coming up in December 22nd on a Legends Night at Millennium Pro Wrestling here in Chatsworth, California. So,
wow. So is that in like a wrestling venue, or is that an outdoor thing?
Yeah, so it's actually a professional wrestling school, Millennium Wrestling Academy. Again, it's in Chatsworth, California, located in the Balderdash unit, and they're on the upstairs of this building. And I started at this school several years ago. It was in Chatsworth. We moved to Moore Park. Now it's back in Chatsworth, and Millennium Pro Wrestling runs Friday night shows every Friday night. One of the only independent wrestling promotions that runs a weekly show. So, it's pretty cool.
So do you have to like pay dues for that sort of thing? Is it like, how does that work? I don't know anything about that world.
It's a crazy, wacky world. That's for sure. It's run kind of like we might run a martial arts school. I mean, there's membership dues, and there's a beginner program, and then you graduate through the ranks, if you will, and then when you're ready, they may give you a match. So that was a lot of fun in my life. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. But this show is all about you. So I want to talk about you and talk about what you bring to the table. I follow you on social media and have for a long, long time. I love your content. I just love, everything you're doing. I love that, in the bio, it talks about helping school owners organically. And I think that's, when it's, I think that when you have people that are vulnerable and authentic online and really put out good content, to me, I just enjoy that so much more than like the canned ads and the stuff that everybody's using. So your stuff is unique. So tell me this, what is your motivation behind helping school owners produce this kind of content and help them in their career?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me on here. And for me, my motivation, I would say, for helping school owners specifically, is just that I've been to so many seminars, like every martial arts marketing, mastermind seminar or whatever. I've been to like as many since I was like a teenager. My older brother, the founder of Action Karate, has been taking me there. Right. I've been going for many years. I'm 32 now. And I'll go to multiple a year. Even when I wasn't running a school, he'd be like, hey, this could be good for you. Come check this out. Mm-hmm. And I would get so frustrated because I felt like it was the same information recycled over and over and over again. And my school, when I opened up, it was 2013. I was a senior in college. And when I opened up, with the help of my brother, who already had multiple Action Karate locations, I just thought I was going to be successful right away. Like I've been teaching for many years. I know how to do that. Yeah, I was young, but like, at least I know how to teach. I know the martial arts, I kind of get the business end of it. This is my first time actually doing it. Mm-hmm. And the first year was like horrific. I think we made like our gross revenue was something like, I don't know what our gross revenue. I know my take home revenue, like my personal check, was like $4,000 or something like that for the entire year.
Wow.
Now, I was living in my mom's basement because it was right after college. I didn't have kids yet or family. Like, I'm not like, I didn't have to move, it was just
Right.
like, it wasn't a big deal for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I didn't have a lot of expenses. It didn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember my brother calling me, and about a year and a half in, I was like, I was struggling, and he's like, "Hey," and I feel like I'm doing everything they're telling me to do, right? I'm doing what my brother tells me to do. The other co-founder, Jacqueline Razai, I'm doing what they're telling me to do at seminars. I'm doing flyers and birthday parties and this and that, and like I don't know what else I can do. I really feel like I'm doing everything. I'm not just like hearing the advice and I'm gonna do my own thing. Like no, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty good at following directions. And eventually there was like one person I talked to. I wish I remembered his name. But I'll call him just like Mike for now. And I was actually at a martial arts seminar. And a lot of times the most value will not come from the speakers themselves, but it'll come from like the other people in the room. Right. And I'm talking to this guy, Mike, and he's telling me how he's getting new members into his martial arts school without running like any ads. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
how are you doing that? And he's like, oh, I do it through like daycares. And I was like, how do you do it through daycares? I just kind of talked his ear off. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned that skill set from my mom and my brother. Just like, hey, unless they say stop talking, like you can just keep asking and people will be open and honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And he broke down for me how he did a program with daycares where he would go, instead of going like most school owners, they try to get paid to go do daycare programs or programs at schools. And that's a fine option. Or they'll go like once a week for like 4 or 5 weeks or 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
What this guy did is he had his he would go once a day for 5 days in a row and then have a ceremony at the end of the week. And the
Mm-hmm.
kids would get so good during that week that at the end of the week when they were invited to his school, they were so good in front of the parents that like they would enroll, right? And I wrote down the process. I did everything he told me to do, and I started doing it. And then before you know it, like I started to have in new members and our growth started to increase like tremendously. Right. And then I was like, okay, it works for daycares. I got to do something similar for schools. Now I can't really go every single day to a school. They have like too much curriculum, but like the process of getting in, what to say, how to say it, how to actually get those people to come into your door.
Mm-hmm.
I adapted the system to make it work for that. And the school like exploded. Right. But it wasn't like it didn't happen overnight. It was like a year and a half, like total crap. And like I even remember getting a call from my older brother saying, hey, I think we put you in the wrong location. I don't think it's working. If you want to move and want to quit this location, you can just stop now. And it was like we had that conversation, and it must have been like 5 or 6 weeks later that everything changed when I figured out how to
Wow.
do these daycares and school programs. And before you know it, we're in like over 2 dozen schools in the area. We're in
Mm-hmm.
about 15 daycares. And I figured if I can control the organic market,
Mm-hmm.
like where all those people are already hanging out, like they're already hanging, like schools, kids are always going to go there, right?
Right.
Daycares, kids are always going to go there. So if I'm
Right.
the person they see as martial arts at their daycare, and then when they're in like elementary school, then middle school, then maybe
Mm-hmm.
even high school, like I'm gonna dominate. Like I'm gonna be the go-to martial
Right.
arts school.
Right.
And that's really what happened. I remember like one time, like we had our best day ever, which was like we did a daycare program, and that week, like we did a ceremony and we enrolled like 30 new members in one day. And it's like full membership, no discount.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like in one day. I remember like looking at all the membership papers. I was doing it all by hand at the time. And I was just like, holy crap, this is wild. Everything's gonna change. Like I'm gonna do this every day. I'm gonna have 4,000 students. It's gonna be amazing. Of course, over time, the efficacy like goes down. Right, it doesn't work that well for like longer periods of time.
Right.
Because usually people are really excited when they see you the next year, the next year, the next year. You'll still get a tail of people coming in, but it's not going to be as impactful as that big first bump.
Right.
Is what I learned. And yeah, like after I did that, and then I grew my school, then I had a couple other schools that I opened. I'm like, hey, like, what can I do to help other martial arts, or what can I do to help, grow my impact in the community without having to open up more martial arts schools? So I'm like, let me just show other martial arts schools how to do this. You don't have to be
Right.
a genius, right? You just need like help and support, know what to say, the scripts, the templates. Like if I just give you that stuff and show you how to do it, you'll be able to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about it is, like, let's say you have an ad that works really well. Okay, like you put up a Facebook ad. If it works really well, eventually the ad is going to have ad fatigue and it's going to stop working. Okay, it's
Right.
just how it works online.
Mhm.
And but yeah, in order to get people to click on the ad, you have to have like the prettiest bait, which is like what's kind of, I think of it kind of like fishing. Like you put your fish in your hook, you cast it out in the open ocean, and you hope that your bait is so pretty that someone's gonna go by and bite, and they're gonna give you their information, and then eventually they'll become a member. And but with organic marketing, if you do it with schools and daycares, you're fishing not in an open ocean with everyone else competing against Coca-Cola and Tide and the 5 other martial arts schools in the area. You're fishing and you're casting that rod or that bait directly into a barrel that has all your potential members swimming around it. So even if you don't have the prettiest bait, right, or even you don't have the perfect words, people are going to bite because that's what's hanging in front of them.
Right.
Right. So it's my way of being able to expand my impact in the martial arts community, my professional life, without me having to open up new schools at like an insane rate. And honestly,
Right.
I just freaking love it. I like talking to school owners about business.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
now
fun.
listen, isn't it, for school owners that are just starting out? I mean, you talked about your story for your first year, right? And there's a lot of school owners out there that, that struggle right off the bat because maybe they're a really good instructor, they're a really good martial artist, but they don't know nothing about business. They don't know nothing about what you're talking about right now, right? So they're just teaching good classes and hoping that people are going to walk in the door, right? And but even still, a lot of school owners, look for that help. They go to seminar after seminar and they become, information collectors, but they don't actually really do anything with it. You know what I mean? It's like they hear the same stuff over and over. Or my favorite quote is, that won't work in my town. Or I tried that before and it didn't work. And the reality is sometimes it's just these small little details that really make a switch and really make a difference. And so, you're helping schools cut the learning curve, really, right? Is what any good instructor will do, any good coach or consultant will do, is help kind of cut down that learning curve a little bit and get right to the meat and potatoes and have a system, because most martial arts schools that struggle or fail and struggle because they don't have systems in place to make sure that their school is running effectively. So let's take a break from that for just a second. Let's
Sure.
dive into your personal life a little bit more, because 9 siblings in your family, and you're the youngest.
So there's 9 total. I'm number 7. So I have
Wow.
two younger brothers.
Okay. So tell me what that was like.
Well, I'm one of the babies. So I didn't have the same experience growing up that my siblings did who are older, right? Like the older ones, they kind of had to watch the younger ones. It became like parents, kind of like babysitters all the time. Me being on the bottom, one of the youngest, I just had a bunch of older sisters and my oldest brother, but mainly older sisters. So 5 older sisters that would just like, kind of like spoil me, right? They take me out to dinner, show me off to their friends with their little brother, right? It was like a little
Mm-hmm.
kid, real
Mm-hmm.
little kid to them because they're much older too. So, I honestly loved it. The fact now that I have siblings who live in different parts of the country. I have a brother. My one brother lives in Melbourne, Australia. I have another sister in LA. I have one in Colorado. So the rest are kind of in the Philadelphia area, but people move from time to time. And I just like love being able to have a big family that I can visit and see. And like each one is like really good at something different.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's why like whenever I have like I always feel blessed that I have so many people in my family that like I didn't have to pay for all their crap. Like my parents had to do all that. I just get all the benefit. Right.
Right.
And being one of the younger ones where like I'm sure that my parents were more strict with the older ones, but as the
Yep.
younger ones came up, they're kind of like, man, it's so much work. I've done this a million times. Like, so I think like I see when I look at my siblings. So I have 5 sisters and 3 brothers. I feel like each one of them I get something specific from. My love of traveling and hiking I get from like 1 or 2 of my sisters. Like the love of business I get from my older brother Solomon. Right, like each one I get something from specifically. And for kids who are doing martial arts, like now, I feel like, especially if you're like an only child, like I feel like you can get that if you put yourself in the right like circles or communities. whether it's a martial arts community or baseball community or whatever.
Mhm.
But luckily also, like, my siblings, none of them are giant F ups. And I feel like if I had a giant F up in the family, maybe that would lead me in the wrong direction. But luckily
Mhm.
everyone's pretty good. So but yeah, it's honestly like it's a blast. Like, Jason, if you came to any of our family meals, your head would probably be spinning because everyone's like yelling at each other and screaming and like we're just loud and definitely talking over each other a lot and fighting for attention. But so if I bring like a girlfriend over or something who's never been there, they're like I have to like pre-frame them. Like, hey, here's what's gonna look like. You're gonna think
Right.
we're angry, but we're not. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna think, how do you talk that way? I'm like, that's just our culture and our family. But uh yeah, it's honestly awesome. How many siblings do you have?
I have two younger brothers.
Okay.
One who is 4 years younger, and the other one is 7 years younger. And all three of us are black belts.
Oh, cool.
My youngest brother actually also owns a martial arts school. So that kind of leads me to a question for you, right? Because I'm the oldest, he's the youngest. I opened my school. He taught for me. We helped him open a school, get him started, and now he's doing his thing. When you were coming into the business, or now, have you ever struggled with the fact of being the younger brother and kind of being in your older brother's shadow? Is that anything that you've ever felt?
Well, I think my brother did a great job of it, my oldest brother, because he never tried to like force me into it.
Hmm.
And for that reason, I was always like, oh, I'll have to go do something else. Like, that's his thing. That's cool. I love martial arts, I love karate and just everything about it. But like,
Hmm.
that's not what I want to do professionally. Like, that's his thing. Right.
Right.
And it wasn't until I had some like terrible jobs and internships and saw like what other jobs looked like. And I was like,
Hmm.
huh, maybe this is pretty good. Maybe I could make it a career. So I think he did a good job of like not letting necessarily that happen. I think some of it's going to happen naturally. Like when I go to whatever martial arts seminar, people might
Hmm.
be like, oh, like your brother did everything, which is true. Like he deserves all the uh, accolades, right? He built the foundation of the business and still continues to grow because of him and his co-founder, right? But I think like one of the things that's good about him is he recognizes that I'm a lot younger than him, right? And he recognizes the value that that comes with in order to grow the business overall. So he's never made me feel that way, or I've never, maybe even when I was like much younger, but definitely not now. I think like he appreciates the young juice that's injected into the company
Hmm.
by whether
Hmm.
it's like trying new things or just excitement and energy and so yeah, I never really felt that way. Did your younger brother feel that way?
I don't know. I'm not the younger one, so I don't know what that feels like. Maybe a little bit, because there's times that we walk in the room and oh, is Jason your brother? But on the other side, I always like to remind him that um, there would be times where people would say, "Are you Jacob's brother?" And so that kind of, I get the same thing, with my wife. I walk into a room and everybody knows my wife, and they're like, "Oh, you're Jackie's husband," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool." I think it goes both ways. It's always kind of tough when someone has paved the way before you, but that was always my goal, was to help build him up and help him, get to a place where he can do his own thing and stand on his own, and he's doing a great job doing that. So yeah. So what was it like growing up, with, you said conversations were loud, the dinner table was crazy, bringing dates over, but how about sports activities? You're an adventurer, right? You love adventure. Did that start when you were a kid?
So my parents had me play all sports. I mean, karate was always like number one standard. This always needs to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it was karate or baseball happening, like karate takes the uh it takes precedence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um they always had me playing other sports, basketball, baseball, soccer very, very poorly. But baseball and basketball I was pretty decent at. But yeah, they always had me doing stuff. And the interesting part is like, even though with all those kids, they somehow were able to juggle getting them to all these things all the time. Like they were always my family, my siblings were always busy. It was never just like, oh, go do your own thing. It was like, oh, you're gonna be signing up for like 12 different things. and you have to at least stick to one or two of them, right? And because of that, I feel like I became like somewhat well-rounded. Or like I feel like martial arts helped me with baseball and martial arts helped me with basketball, right? So I played sports like through high school. Um, but yeah, I think that they always kept us busy. So when I got to high school and then college, and I had to juggle lots of new things in my life, it never really felt that busy,
Hmm.
right? Because I was used to it.
Right.
Right, like, I would go to school. I went to a Jewish private school. It was really tiny. Uh, I would go to school till, like, 4 or 5 PM, so it was really late. But then I'd have karate, and then I'd have piano practice, right, or, like, whatever it was, and then I'd do my
Hmm.
homework, and it was, like, always tons of crap, but, like, that was just normal to me. So, like, when my friends were overwhelmed in high school or college, like, never really felt that overwhelming to me. It just felt like how you should be, like, you should be busy, right?
Hmm.
Like, now, I'm not sure that's the best idea for raising kids. I think kids need time to develop creativity and do things on their own without being structured for everything. But I think for me, at least as far as I can tell, I think it was pretty helpful. I mean, when it comes to food though, you had to kinda scrap and figure it out on your own. When I say family dinner, that's, like, really, like, when we became all adults and, like, once a week. There was no really family dinners that we had. Like, we didn't sit down, my mom cooked. My mom barely ever cooked. It was kinda like eat whatever's frozen from the freezer, heat up a hot dog in the microwave or canned tuna fish, and that's it. Like, and I learned how to cook young because of that. Like, I think I was, like, 12 when I started, like, cooking because I was just tired of eating Chef Boyardee, and I was like, "I should learn how to make some eggs and some pasta," and then then I started moving on to proteins and stuff.
Right.
Um but yeah, I mean, it taught me so much. I feel like anytime I mention to anyone that I have that many siblings, they're like, "Holy shit, that's crazy." They
Yeah.
kinda ask the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, as a child, as you were growing up, you were involved in lots of activities, and you were always, kind of busy, right? So when you got to be an adult, as things were happening, lots going on, it just felt like that's the way life is, right? And what I notice with parents, and myself included, I know that when my children, our children, my wife and I have two, 21-year-old and an 18-year-old now, as they were growing up, we put them in soccer, put our daughter in dance. Actually, they both did dance for a bit, and soccer, baseball, softball, karate, of course. Being a school owner, and
Definitely.
they were always kind of involved in these different activities. And I'm looking at my kids now, and by what you said, I think that they feel the same way. It's like they were so, quote, busy, involved in activities year round, that now as adults, going to school full time, both my kids are going to school and both have a job. So, they get, and for some kids, that's a lot. Like some kids, they have a hard time just managing school,
Right.
right? And getting good grades. But like, both our kids are going to school full time and having a mid to part-time job, which I think is it, but they handle it, they take it in stride. And I'm pretty amazed because I see, some of their friends, and I'm like, hey, so and so have a job, and they're like, no, they're just focused on school. And I'm like, huh. I mean, that's cool. That's fine, but it makes me even more impressed with our own children that they're able to manage all of that, as well as, when you're 18 and 21, managing your personal life, having time for friends and, boyfriend, girlfriend, that kind of stuff, getting to go out and do the fun stuff. So, I see that with kids growing up, in the martial arts school now, they're always rushing from baseball to karate class or soccer to karate class, or they're constantly choosing between, am I going to go to karate or am I going to go to my soccer game or something?
Oh,
So
yeah.
do you have this challenge in your school where you find that parents are struggling to have that commitment to martial arts and make it, the priority, because we as martial artists, at least I do, like I've always kind of been like, martial arts it needs to be number one, because that's what I love and that's what I do. But people struggle with that concept, right? They're like, well, it's not for us. So anyway, do you struggle with that in your schools?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and we've seen since COVID after COVID, people are a little bit more flaky than they were before.
Hmm.
And we've seen attrition go up across all of our schools, like, on average, not a
Hmm.
tremendous amount, right? But by 0.5% 0.5% to 1% makes a big difference, right, over the
Mm-hmm.
course of years. So absolutely, we've seen that. I mean, the thing we're always thinking is like, how could we make martial arts like not expendable or inexpendable? I don't know if that's a word, but like where they can't imagine ever quitting. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. Like you can't imagine your kids taking them out of karate because like that's your yeah, that's like everything for you, but for them it's not. So how do we make it everything for them, right? So that's what
Mm-hmm.
we're always like focused on, and it's difficult. I'll tell you that. Like, I think it's important though for parents that like the schedule's convenient. Like if you're making it inconvenient for them, like every class level should have what's called like a prime time class, which is like
Mm-hmm.
between the times of like 5 and like 7, right?
Right.
And some classes that are earlier and later, like, and if you like, you can't just give all your best class times to your black belts or all your best class times to your beginners. You need to have like some for each because it has to be. If it's not convenient for them, people just don't even care. We've had people quit that like it's not like they don't like our program, it just wasn't convenient anymore. The parent didn't
Right.
feel like bringing them.
And it's all, isn't it all about convenience for people
Yeah.
in, in all areas of their life these days? It's like everybody wants everything to be convenient. So that stuck out to me right away. In our school we have what we call an X schedule. So if we've got a beginner class on Monday and Wednesday that's at 3 o'clock, that beginner class on Tuesday, Thursday is going to be at 6:30. So you got that balance, like you said. So that's never an excuse. That's never a reason why, oh well, we can't make the schedule. Well, we have different classes, different days so that you can choose. So that's one way that you do it. What are some other ways that you do it?
Some other ways that we help people stay, like keep training, you mean?
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
make it
Okay.
more
So
convenient, if you will.
yeah, how to make it more convenient. So we have on-demand classes and online classes. So even if they don't feel like bringing them, they can
Hmm.
hop online. It's actually pretty cool. This happened during COVID, where we needed an online instructor, and like we were all doing it ourselves. And somehow, I don't even know exactly, but I found this guy who his school closed down in Florida for COVID, and he was like, you know just extra cautious during the pandemic. I didn't want to do any in-person stuff. And he started teaching for us online. Like we trained him on how to do it. And he still teaches for us right now online. So, and
Wow.
it's live classes. And he teaches from Florida, does it from his laptop. And I could depend on him. He'll show up to every single class. Like everyone loves him. We still
Hmm.
have some students who still train online exclusively in like California and a couple other states. It's trickled a lot. Like it's really like gone down since COVID. But we still have
Right.
some that are like still training and like still loving it and still doing it live with him. So I think you need to have like you need to cover all the bases and make sure that you tell parents, hey, like here's the class lines, but if you ever can't make it or you're running late, you also have an on-demand class. So don't
Hmm.
say, oh, I have a YouTube video. It sounds kind of boring. You have an
Right.
on-demand class where you can watch class anytime, anywhere, what they're learning that week. That way your child can practice at home if you can't make it. Or if you want
Hmm.
them to get feedback, you also have live classes where they're going to be live with an instructor so you can actually give them feedback, give them the help they need. That way you have all these, or maybe like you've already come to class 2 or 3 times that week, you don't feel like driving. This is the best opportunity because you can just put them on at home. You don't have to do anything.
Hmm.
And also just like, this is not necessarily about convenience, but pre-faming to parents that their child is going to want to quit. I think
Yeah.
that's so important. Like,
Yep.
hey, parents, here's the deal. We're going to purposely make things difficult for your child. We follow Angela Duckworth. She's a professor at University of Pennsylvania. She wrote this book called Grit. Have you ever read that? Have you seen that book?
I have not.
She basically does a study of like what's the number one indicator of a child being successful, and has nothing to do with IQ or motivation or parents. It has to do with like them developing a grit muscle, right? Having challenges and difficulties and getting past that. Okay. The book is amazing. I read it. Grit by Angela Duckworth. Um, so we'll talk about that and we'll say, like, hey, like during this training, we're purposely going to make things difficult. Okay.
Hmm.
And your child's going to come to you. I don't care how excited they are right now, but they're going to come to you later and they're going to say, it's too hard. I don't like it. They might cry. But if you drop them, they're never going to develop that grit muscle they need. You need them to get past that difficult part. If you get past
Hmm.
that difficult, that's where they build grit. That's where they build confidence. They don't build confidence and grit when things are easy and fun. And oh, it's a great class. You build grit and confidence when things suck. You don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
So
that. I love that bit of advice, because it's something that we've done for many years. Is, right away, day one, there's going to come a time that your child is going to want to quit, and you're going to have a choice, in what you teach them, because what they do in that moment is what they will end up doing when they start playing baseball, soccer, in school. They quietly quit and just kind of give up on their grades. I mean, it's a lifelong habit that's created. Just as much as you can create the habit of having grit, having that grit muscle, you can also build the habit of learning how to quit. And
oh yeah.
so I think that's a great part. Now let's talk about Double Your Dojo, right? So earlier we were talking about, you wanted to find a way to kind of grow your school, and now with this, you're helping other schools grow. When was this created? How was this created? And how has it evolved?
Yeah, so it was created about 2 years ago,
Okay.
and I would say it evolved. I wouldn't say it evolved, but like I would say where it spawned from is that I've been in so many coaching programs myself, where I've paid people to help me,
Hmm.
um, and I probably spent I don't know 50 grand. Okay, like no small amount of money, and I will look at what other industries were doing to grow their business and like being involved in other masterminds. And I was like, looking what we did, I'm like, damn, we suck. Like, we think we're so great. Oh, my school's doing 30,000 a month. My school's doing 50. My school's doing 80. Like, I'm in rooms now with people that are doing 300,000 a month, and and their margins are way better. And I'm like,
Hmm.
damn, we could be doing so much more and so much better. We just don't even know it. Right.
Hmm.
And I'm like learning all these systems and operations. I'm like, hey, like we could do this for the martial arts industry based on the like those like systems of keeping like stats and KPIs, but also knowing with my whole martial arts background, I'm like I could easily apply this because that's what I was using it for. I was using it for myself. Like, hey, why can't I help other people do the same exact thing? Like, I
Hmm.
can definitely do it. I can help them remotely. So it'd be nice to not have a new building to have a new business like we always have for martial arts schools. So I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
that's gonna be nice about it. And like martial arts school owners are always like my favorite people to talk to, right? Like they just get it. So if I can like, hey, I can make money and I can help them grow their school. Like anytime I get a testimonial or someone tells me, hey, like, oh, we did the daycare program this week. We have 7 new members. Thank you. And this has nothing to do with their website or Google or anything. It's like on top of all that.
Hmm.
And they know how to do it over and over and over again. They don't need me forever. Like they can just literally rinse and repeat the process. Like they don't need to like, if you pay an agency to run an ad, you always have to pay them to get new
Hmm.
members, right? You always have to pay Mark Zuckerberg. But if you know how to do it organically, you can just do it over and over again yourself. You don't need me, right? So if they could learn,
Right.
if I could teach them how to do it over and over again, then like they're gonna be fans forever, and they're gonna support and send me people in the future, and like they're gonna have an income for their family. Because like most people who get involved in martial arts, like this too, because you're a coach, like they don't do it because they want to make a ton of money. It's like no one does that. Go do something else. Like this is not the industry to like go into if you just want to make a lot of money. They go into it because they love it and they want to help people. I can help them, right? So they need that structure, and I think more than anything, like kind of like our kids in karate, like they need accountability. They just need someone to be like, "Hey, you said you're gonna do this, you need to do it. What's going on?"
Hmm.
All right, I know that's what I like too.
Right. Right. For sure. And so, it's been a couple years, right? Has anything have you learned anything along the way that you've tweaked or changed to help the school owners more than when you started? Are there some things that you've learned along the way that have helped you help the school owners?
Yeah, 100%. I would say I made lots of mistakes, just like anything else, like any new business, you're gonna make mistakes. I feel like over time, anyone I've made mistakes with, or I've done the wrong things or said the wrong things, even if it comes out of the right intention, like I'm just trying to help, I think
Hmm.
sometimes I could be a little too honest or too blunt, and like, hey, here's how exactly how I'm feeling, and like some people don't take it the right way, which is like ultimately my fault as a coach. I can blame them for being sensitive, but my job is to coach and motivate, not necessarily to, just say the most truthful sentence, right? Even if it is true.
Mhm.
So I would say that like one is most people are pretty lazy. Like, it's like so most people are pretty
That's
lazy. I
pretty
mean,
blunt.
okay, yeah, I mean, that's one, right? But, like, how I'll do is I have a coaching call with someone, and then, it's based on whatever their school wants, right? So if they wanna open up another location, if they wanna build staff to take over, if they would just wanna increase the growth of their school. So whatever they want, we'll make a plan for them. And then each week I'll give them homework. And so it's very structured. So week 1, you're gonna go through this, this, and this, right? So if we
Mhm.
get to week 2, I'm gonna ask you, "Is this done?" And the answer is no. Like it's hard to build off that, right?
Right.
So the people that don't do well are people that don't do the homework. It's oh, it's busy this week. I'll get to it next week. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, well, like you're paying me to give you advice. Like, what do you want me to do here?
Yeah. What
Right.
are what are some of the major sticking points when you're working with a client? What are some of the excuses, if you will, or what are some of the hardest things for school owners to wrap their heads around?
I think people spend time doing the wrong things. Okay. So how I like to think about it is like, okay, you're trying to make a basketball team. Okay. And you go to and you try out and you go to the coach and you're like, hey, did I make the team? And he's like, well, what did you do? He's like, well, I ran up and down the court 4,000 times. I jumped really high and I was trying really hard. I was energetic and like sweating a lot. I was being a really good team player. And the coach goes, okay, great. But like, how many rebounds did you have? I didn't have any rebounds. Okay. Well, how many points did you have? I didn't have any points either. Okay. What about assists? Didn't have any assists. Okay. So, like, how could you make the team if you didn't put any stats on the board? Right.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, the school owners, the business owners are doing a lot of things. They're running back and forth, right? They're jumping high, they're putting energy, but they're not doing things to put stats on the board. And that's what
Mhm.
matters. Like, you need to put
Right.
stats on the board. And then, like, and then a lot of times they'll use the excuse, this is not my clients, because if you're paying for a coaching service, you don't have this kind of mentality. But other people I hear say, well, then if you're worried about stats and money, then you're a McDojo. It's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, no one successful has ever said those words.
Right.
It's only the people at the bottom that say those words,
Mhm.
right? Like, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember what your question even was.
Well,
Uh,
the question was, what are the biggest sticking points? And you already nailed one, is that people are more busy than they are productive, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you could be running around all day long. I'm busy, I'm busy. What do most people say in business? You ask them, how you doing? Oh man, I'm just super busy. Isn't that like the first thing out of a lot of people's mouth is I'm super busy. Okay, well, what are you doing? And like you said, if you're not putting points on the board, and even worse, or at the same time, if you're not even keeping track of score, how do you know where you are? Right?
Exactly.
Like if you don't know the score, how do you know if you got to put in a little bit effort, or if you can maybe switch out a player and let someone on the bench come out and play and build that player up? Because even when you're ahead, right? And this is one thing that I see with school owners and just people in general, when they reach a certain level of success, they get to that level of success and they kind of coast, right? And instead of taking your bench player and now building them up to be a star, and now, that's how we can build a star team instead of just having a star player that puts all the points on the board. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that analogy of bringing up the bench player. And I think if like they're able to focus on like money making activities and understand that money for a martial arts business doesn't make you a sellout. It
Hmm.
makes you responsible. How many martial arts schools that are old school that pay their instructors either don't pay them at all or pay them like, $6 an hour, right? Or $7 an hour. They've been trained their whole life and they do everything or
Hmm.
minimum wage, right? Maybe if it's like a teenage instructor and hey, you want to be able to put them on payroll, that's different. Okay. But like I want to be able to pay my instructors well. I want them to brag when they go somewhere how much money they're making, teaching martial arts for a living.
Hmm.
Right. So, and the only way to do that is if the school's doing well. And if it's not, then then I have no way of paying them. The only way I have upgrade equipment is if I have money to do so. right?
Right.
Like there's so many other benefits to making money besides like, oh, now I just put more money in my bank account, that I think if like you help them think about it in that way, then they'll change their mindset on it.
Right. Well, more money in our school just offers more opportunity. Opportunity for the school owner to have a little bit of flexibility and freedom, for a staff member or any instructor, working their way up, or a school owner to hire, staff, because that's a big problem for most school owners is not having enough staff. I can't afford staff. Well, sometimes you can't afford not to have staff.
Right.
And then money also provides opportunity, like you said, equipment, advertising dollars, marketing, being involved. If you truly get into martial arts to serve people, right, and to serve your community, if you make more money, can't you help more of the organizations in your school? Maybe sponsor the PTA, maybe sponsor school events, sponsor youth sports, start a nonprofit organization that can help, people in need. So, I mean, yes, I agree with you. A lot of people are worried to make more money in the martial arts because they're considered a sellout. And you said it all it does is give you some responsibility. And maybe people just don't want that responsibility. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe they don't. Like I I wish I did, because it's just like sad to see school owners struggling to pay rent,
Totally.
relying on their significant other's income or something. Like if you work as a professional, been doing this thing your whole life, you deserve to be rewarded for that. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But they have other people. Problem is also they listen to advice from the wrong people, right? They listen to advice from
Mm,
other school owners who they're friends,
right.
who also don't do well or don't do great, and like they're like, and they just agree with each other, and they just get
Right.
stuck like, oh yeah, that school's a McDojo. You see their kids, blah 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 blah. I'm like,
Right.
dude, like, why don't you get advice from people like, the Kovars, right? Or like, like people who run a John Boussard or Master Rappel, people who run like multiple school organizations, and I'm sure there's many others. I'm not saying, but
Yeah.
um, like the people who run martial arts organizations. You don't have to have many schools, right? There's some schools that have some school owners have one school that does
Right.
fantastic, and that's great too. Like that's awesome. But get advice from them, not your friend who's basically in the same spot as you.
Well, all that does sometimes is make you feel better being mediocre. When you're taking advice from someone that hasn't reached the level of success that you want, like if you want to be here, but you're taking advice from someone that's here, it's not really helpful. All it does is make you feel more comfortable, and,
Yeah,
and
that's
it,
a good
it
point.
it almost allows you to excuse that behavior. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about, you got a podcast, Black Belt Business Podcast. When did you start that? Why did you start that? And what's going on that podcast?
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. So, the Black Belt Business Podcast is a way for me to support my friends who are other entrepreneurs and other people in the martial arts industry who I
Hmm.
think people need to hear from. And for me, it's also a way for people to get to know me, so that way they trust me as a coach,
Hmm.
right? So I'll have people that never liked anything I ever posted, never commented, never sent me a message, never talked to before, but they've listened to the podcast and they'll reach out to me. I had someone like last week and they're like, "Hey, like how do I sign up for your services for coaching?" It's not a hard sell whatsoever because they already get it, right? They've already listened to my voice
Hmm.
for hours, and then it's easy to get them to register, right? Because they know who I am. I don't have to like teach them or convince them of anything. They already like know. And when you get to speak on a podcast, it's also fun, like super fun. Like I love doing it. So
Hmm.
let's get that out of the way. Like that's probably the most enjoyable part of my job is when I get to sit down and talk to someone like you, Jason, and I'm not distracted looking at my phone or something else. Like you have headphones. I'm jealous. When I do my podcast, I usually have headphones on. My AirPods were acting crazy, so I couldn't do that today. Um, but when I have someone just locked in my headphones, I can just talk and listen to them and have a normal conversation that I always feel like the conversations I had in the background with my siblings and the conversations I've had in the background with my older brother, like whenever other people around they hear it, they always like, "Oh, that's interesting," or "Oh, I should do that." And I was like, Why?" Like that's what podcasting is. It's like you're just a part of someone else's conversation, and you get to learn from them, as opposed to me just telling you this information. listen to
Right.
me and this other person talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I love asking questions. And it's like, I love like even asking questions that sometimes can like dig a little deeper than people are comfortable with and seeing what they say. Hey, they might be comfortable with it. Hey, they might not. But I think anytime I've been vulnerable and I've just said shit that I've done that's bad, like I've just messed up, right? Like it's never made people look at me worse. It's only made them more connected to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I shared like how was it last year, 2 years ago, whatever it was. I lost I think it was $187,000 in crypto. Okay. When I was, and I wrote the story of like, I got really into it because everyone else was really into it. And I bought the hype train, like kept on putting money into it, blah, 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 blah. And people weren't like, oh, you're an idiot. Though some people were probably thinking that, which is fine. Most people were like, hey, I'm sorry that happened to you. Like,
Right.
lesson learned. And the really good people, the people that I admire that make way more money than me, they would message me privately and say, hey, Matt, saw your post one time. Ron Sell, like he messaged me, like the founder of Spark. Okay. Do you know Ron?
I do. Yep.
Yeah, Ron's a man. So he messaged me privately and he's like, hey, one time I messed up a coding on the software. And because I messed up this one part of code, it cost me, I think he said like something like $500,000. And I'm
Oh,
like, that is wild. Like,
yeah.
so it's always like the people that like are above you, they're going to rise you up, and the people at the bottom that try to pull you lower. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime more vulnerable and say like, hey, yeah, like this one school is not doing well right now. I'm trying everything. I don't know what it is exactly, but I know it's going to turn around. But like, hey, here's why I think it's doing poorly. Like, I just be honest. Or hey, here's what I'm dealing with in my personal life. Then like people just feel like you're real. And doing the podcast allows me to get people to know me and just broadcast that without me having to have all those one-on-one conversations.
Yeah. Well, you and I are on the same page with that. The whole podcast for me started with, right after COVID, or kind of like maybe right during COVID. I was looking for a project to keep me active, keep me networking, keep me talking with people, and keep things, positive. Right. And it has spawned into something that, like, I literally look forward to every podcast, because I know, and if you've noticed me looking down, it's because I write notes. I mean, I wrote notes on the book you recommended and about the things that you offer. And I learn from it. I learn from every guest. And it's a greater, for us to have a conversation, face to face, even if it's on screen, there's that connection that we have. And maybe we won't talk for a little while, but there's still kind of that connection. So many guests that I've had on the show have reached out, recommended other guests, reached out, asked for advice on certain things. I've reached out to them. And so, just that connection. And it is, a lot of times it can be very vulnerable, very authentic. I love it when people are totally transparent, because, I mean, hey, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And if you have the right mindset and you have the right attitude, I mean, you can literally learn from everyone. I mean, I learned so much, even just from like my 3-year-olds, my white belts, my kids, teach me a lot. So we're on the same page when it comes to podcasting, how, there's so many different facets to it. And yeah, it helps people kind of get to know who we are. Maybe they trust us a little bit more. I've thought many times now, as today is, I think, number 213,
Damn.
one day my kids may watch these back, or maybe they turn it on and show their kids, and it kind of leaves a legacy about me and the people that I associated with. So, and it tells some good stories. So podcasting has been super fun. I mean, this has just been such a passion project for me. So I'm glad to hear that, you're feeling the same way, and you're using it in that direction, because I've had a lot of people ask me too, well, why don't you monetize your podcast, or, why don't you sell more ad space and stuff like that? And, I mean, those are good questions. And really the answer is because I never really set out to make this another income stream for myself. I really just wanted to have something. A lot of people like to read. A lot of people like to work out. I like to do both, but I love to have a good conversation. So I'd like to keep it that way for as long as, as long as I can. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I
go
never
ahead.
leave a podcast episode and think, that was boring. I always think,
Right.
that was so fun. I'm energized afterwards.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I mean, I usually get my workout in right before my podcast, but then after the podcast, I go and hit some office work, and I get off feeling like, okay, like I'm ready to work, right? Even though to
Oh,
me,
looks like
martial
you
arts
worked
business is not
shoulders
work.
today.
Huh?
Looks
I
like you worked
actually
shoulders right before you
I
got on
did
here.
work
I see
shoulders.
you.
I did. I did. How'd you know?
You coming here all pumped
Shoulders and
up. That's
legs.
not fair to me. If I would have known, I would have done some pull-ups or something.
Well, hey, listen, it's been great. We're going to wrap up here in just a minute. I want to give anybody that's watching live, if you have any questions or comments, anything you want to ask Matthew, please drop a comment below. But Matt, it's been cool. I had Solomon on the show a little while back, and we had a great conversation. Had a great conversation with you today. And is there anything that you want to leave the audience with? Any tips or advice, or just some closing thoughts?
Oh man, that's a lot of pressure for the end. I would just say, like, I've been thinking about this a lot, this might not resonate with everyone, but if it resonates with one person, I think it's worth it. Is that, like, for many years you try to build up really good habits, right? And whether it's like waking up a certain time or drinking water or working out, whatever, you know what positive habits are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start to like let one slip, it's a really slippery slope to let the other slip. And if like I asked this question on Facebook the other day, I was like, hey, if your personal life is a wreck, is it possible for your professional life to be in order? And I'm sure there are some people that are able to isolate the two. But like went through like a breakup, like a long-term relationship. It wasn't even a bad breakup. There's no nastiness or anything like that. But it was like, over a 5-year relationship that ended. And then like some of those good habits, like one slipped, and then another one slipped, and then another
Mm-hmm.
one slipped. And then the businesses start to slip. Right. Then they're not doing as well. And I found that
Yep.
like when my personal life is kind of falling apart or like not as good as I want it to be, the other part of my life kind of tails afterwards. It might not happen right away, but there's like
Mm-hmm.
there's an effect there. And when I'm working out and I'm going to and I'm working myself personally and I'm reading and I'm doing jiu-jitsu and I'm just doing all and I'm stretching, I'm doing all the things I want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
the business also tail end goes up. Right. So you really, I think if you want to be like a whole human and like be the best you can be, then like you really need to have your personal shit together. Because it's so hard. If you have like a really, your personal life is total shit, like it's hard to be your best self at work.
Totally.
So
Totally. No, and if you kind of flip that around too, like the more the more you're working out, the more you're eating healthy, the more you're drinking water, the more you're taking care of yourself, you're energized to take care of your business and take care of your team and take care of your students, or you're looking out for people. But I mean, like, you're right. Once one part of your discipline slips, it just kind of erodes. And after a while, you find yourself and you're like, wow, how did I dip so fast? You know, um, if I'm currently trying to lose at least another, 15 to 20 pounds. Right. And it's like, those pounds they didn't pack on in a day, a week, a month.
yeah.
That was just slowly slipping away. And then I'm like, wait a second, where am I? And so now trying to get those pounds off, it's not going to happen in a day, a week, or a month. You got to be patient, but those simple, small habits, pay dividends in the end. So I agree with you 100%. Just those real
What's your
simple
main
habits.
thing what's the main thing that you think fell off for your personal,
Uh,
nutrition or
yeah, it
working
was
out?
100% nutrition, because I work out every day. Like, I mean, and being on the mat and teaching, I'm always moving, right? But I pretty much hit the gym every single day, and I love to lift. I stopped running for a little while, so I kind of fell off of that. So added some more cardio back in. But my biggest challenge truly was the food I was eating, how often I was eating, and how much I was eating. Sometimes, and martial arts school owners can understand this, right? Like, sometimes you just don't eat until the end of the day, like kind of have a snack or two throughout the day, and you're so busy that you don't really take the time to eat properly. And I'd get home and I'd be so hungry. I just eat everything, right?
Yeah.
Everything at once. And now I'm on a new program. Mike Storms?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike Storms, a couple other people, they turned me on to Optavia, and I have a local coach who I ended up jumping on with. And I literally, I've been posting in my story a lot, and I literally have an alarm set for every time that I should be eating, because I have to remind myself to eat, because it's easy to just skip it. and then I would just, I'll just eat a bunch. So that was my biggest problem. And so now my habits of eating smaller portions, eating more often, and eating quality food. I love going to the grocery store now. I always hated going grocery shopping. But now when you just go to buy protein and produce, man, grocery shopping's so easy. I don't have to go up and down every aisle. Just grab the meat, grab the vegetables. I'm good to go.
Yeah, stay on the perimeter, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a simple piece of advice that I've heard for all of my life, but it's like, you kind of get comfortable when you start eating things that, just a little bit today, just a little bit tomorrow, but that little bit today and tomorrow, just continue. So, I'm still, still on that path and still working on it. But I've always loved working out. I thought that I could outwork my diet, but at almost 50 years old, that's just not possible. In my 20s, I could. In my 20s, I could eat everything and work out, minimal and still be able to burn it. No, not anymore. Body has changed, but it's okay. But hey, listen, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate our time together. Appreciate you dropping some knowledge today and just sharing with us, and would love to, man, wouldn't it be cool to have like a Brenner roundtable? Like I could have your whole family. We'd have like 9 people, but maybe you and your bro and, a couple other school owners. I love to do roundtables about once a month or so instead of the one-on-one. So would love to talk to you about that, and just stay connected and keep doing a great job. Because I may not comment on your content, but I'm watching it. I'm enjoying it. I'm liking it. So keep doing what you're doing. It's
cool. Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
They need it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else you want to share before we go? Any websites? Places people can find you?
Yeah. Best way to contact me is on Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1 at blackbeltbrenner1, or Facebook, Matthew Brenner. Send me a message. Honestly, you can ask me any question you want. I'll never be offended. And happy to help any way I can. And yeah, that's the best way to reach me. Or if you prefer email, Matthew at doubleyourdojo.com. That's it.
Beautiful. Cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks again for the chat today. Appreciate it. We'll catch up again soon.
Cool. Thanks, Jason.
All right, guys. So thanks for watching Master Motivation Podcast today. Please go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel so you can check out some of the last few episodes, as well as some more coming up next week. So go out and make it a great day, guys, and take care. Thanks, Matthew.
See ya.